was recently May the 4th, otherwise known as Star Wars Day, and I always like to check to see if there are any Jabba-related items being released on that day. Usually there's something. It wasn't a lot this year, but we did get 2 re-releases of products that I've actually talked about on the channel before. These, of course, are Geeki Tiki Mega Mugs, one for Jabba and one for the Rancor. I talked about this one in a separate video, and about this one in a video about Celebration 2019 exclusives, which you can see up there. These aren't just straight re-releases, they are actually slightly updated versions in the sense that they are including different characters, so that this one here, which included Salacious Crumb as the mini mug, or mini muglet as they like to call it, now includes Bib Fortuna instead, and this one, which included Jedi Luke, is now including Oola. So, I did want to take a look at these and just see what the deal is with them, compare them a little bit to the previous releases, but it also got me thinking that I have actually picked up a number of Geeki Tikis in the meantime, since I made the last video about these, that I've never really talked about on the channel, so I'd like to introduce those to you as well. So, first of all, let's just go ahead and open these up and we'll see what the new ones look like. And here we have them out of the box. And my first impressions are that the big mugs here, the big Geeki Tikis, are more or less the same as the ones that they released before. We'll compare them in a second and just see if there's any differences. But what we're really here to look at, I think, are the mini muglets. So let's take a look here at Bib Fortuna. We have quite a nice sculpt, I would say here. I've said this before, but I'm a fan of this aesthetic, even though I don't particularly like Tiki aesthetic, generally speaking, but I think these are well done and well sculpted and everything. Look at those Leku there. Got nice red eyes, and his insides here are all black. There's a little bit of a unevenness to the edge here on both of these figures, just in terms of like the where the glaze is, I guess, but it's not really anything to get upset about. And yeah, it looks good. My only complaint really is that I don't see why Bib needed to be a mini muglet, right? It seems a little weird for him to be so much smaller than Jabba and so much smaller than all the other humanoid figures we've had in this line. I think they kind of just wanted an excuse to re-release these 2, and they were trying to come up with who they should include with Jabba to make it new. And so they landed on Bib Fortuna. Maybe they also thought people wouldn't buy Bib as an independent character. That's possible. But anyway, you know, I would have rather have had him be full size. But other than that, I think he's quite well done. Oola, on the other hand, I think makes sense for her to be small if you're pairing it with the Rancor, just like we had the mini Luke. I would like to see a full size one of her, you know, released as an independent product. That'd be nice, but it probably won't happen. And that's one reason I decided I would get these, just because I like Oola. I like Bib too, but you know, Oola in particular doesn't have a lot of merchandise made for her, so it's nice to get what we can. Nice sculpt here. She doesn't look super comfortable, but that's, I guess, to be expected, given that she's about to be eaten by the Rancor. She does sit here in his hand. Not perfectly, though. Well, it seems like there's a little bit of a interference there in terms of how she sits. Not totally straight up and down, maybe. Just not a big deal, though. So let's go ahead and compare these to the previously released versions and see if there are any differences, shall we? All right, here we have both versions. I don't know if you can tell any difference just by looking at them here. But I was actually surprised when I put them side by side how different they actually are. Over here we have the original one from 2017. In fact, if we look on the bottom, probably would say that. Yep, 2017 Think Geek. That's back when Think Geek was sort of the exclusive maker or distributor or whatever. And over here we have the newest one here. That says 2020, and it just says Beeline Creative, who is the company sort of behind Geeki Tikis in general. And I must say, comparing the two, this one is quite a bit nicer looking. It's got a lot more definition in the details on the sculpt for whatever reason. I think it might be just maybe how the glaze has been applied. I'm not sure. but I can easily see the details, the edges of all of the little indentations here in the sculpt, whereas this one kind of seems dull. I don't know if you can tell that on video, but if you look at the tail, I think it's fairly apparent what the difference is. Now, is this a difference between the 2017 model and the 2020 model, or is it just something that varies naturally from piece to piece? I don't know about that. Maybe people who have one of these, one or the other of them, could chime in and let me know. But just judging by what I have here in front of me, I would say this is better. One other thing also, I noticed that there are some differences in the sculpt, which really surprised me. If you look on, for example, the hands here, this has a little sort of parenthesis on his hand there, whereas this one is a completely different shape. There's several other minor differences. If we look, well, there's a similar thing here. It's a different size and shape. And the one that sort of stood out to me the most was on his tummy here. I don't know if you can tell, but this little question mark or curlicue shape is actually very different in shape. Does it matter which? Not really, but it was interesting to me that they didn't just reuse the same exact thing. And I don't entirely understand why they wouldn't have done that, except that maybe, I don't know, something in the manufacturing process necessitated it. Who knows? But just in terms of the glaze, I'll definitely have to give the higher marks to this one. All right, here we have the Rancors. Again, this is the original one from 2019, and this is the 2020 re-release. We can see on the bottom there, 2019. So this one I don't think has quite as big of a difference. I didn't notice any differences in the sculpt that I could see. Not that it matters again, but I thought it was interesting that there were some differences. This one does seem to have a bit of a lighter glaze. I don't know that one is necessarily superior to the other. I think you can see the details a little bit better on this one, perhaps in the same way that I was talking about with the original Jabba, but I don't think there's as stark of a difference between these two, so it doesn't really matter that much to me in this case. So unless you're me, and I'm fairly sure that you're not, you're probably not going to be wanting to buy all of these. Probably people who bought the Rancor and the original Jabba are not going to be buying the new sets for the most part. It's going to be people who maybe didn't know about them at the time or couldn't get them because the Rancor was too expensive on the secondary market and so forth. For those people, I think these are reasonably good choices. The Rancor in particular here, the one with Oola, the new version, I think is actually superior to the original one just because they already made a full-size Jedi Luke Geeki Tiki, which I'll actually show you in a little bit. And Oola is kind of the more desirable and unusual character. As for Jabba, you know, he does have that weird size issues with Bib Fortuna being so much smaller than him, but they did release a whole set of these mini muglets and different characters, so maybe if you have that set, you'd want to get another one to add to that, for example, or maybe you just want the Jabba and you don't really care that much about what comes with him. In that case, it's not a bad choice. One thing we haven't really talked about, though, is price. I think I mentioned this original Jabba set, I paid $25. I think it might have retailed for $30. That's a very good price. You know, that's reasonable. The Rancor set, original 2019 Celebration exclusive Rancor, doubled that price to $60, and then you couldn't get it anywhere but Celebration, so you had to get it on the secondary market for quite a bit of markup. So that was quite expensive. These new releases here are $75-ish, $70 to $75. Expensive, I think, quite frankly, for what they are, but not exorbitantly so. If you really want one of these characters, you know, it's not too bad. There are probably going to be sales that come along too, as these are not exclusives in the same way that they have been in the past. So that's my take on these. Now let's go ahead and look at some of the other Jabba-related Geeki Tikis that I've picked up in the last few months. All right, first of all, we have the Gamorrean Guard. As I recall, this one was a little bit hard to get a hold of, but I think they're more commonly available now. He's a full-sized Tiki. He's got a nice stout body sculpt there. I like this one quite a bit. Not a lot of you know, additional colors or anything used on here, though. Just the green and then red on the inside, or sort of a reddish orange maybe. Pretty nice, though. He's definitely going to add a lot to a Jabba display. Next we have Jedi Luke. This one has him holding his lightsaber, although as I mentioned, the mini muglet version that we have here shows him with his Rancor bone, but it's essentially the same look, even though it's not just been shrunk down, it's a different sculpt, but still pretty similar. Both of them have green on the inside, I guess to match his lightsaber color. So, pretty nice. This is one of those that sort of could be a Jabba's Palace thing and could be something else as well. Next up we have Leia in her bounty hunter disguise. This one's quite well done, I think. She's got her thermal detonator, and there's a hole here in her hand so she can hold something. In the sort of publicity shots, they've shown her holding a skewer, kind of like this. I've got a bamboo skewer you can just put through there. I'm not sure if it's big enough to put a straw through there or not, but, you know, you can get creative with that a little bit. And definitely some nice detail on there. Looks like it's carved out of wood almost. Here we have Han in carbonite. This one is really large. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's gigantic. Looks like it could be used as a planter or something like that. And inside, there's no contrasting color or anything like that. And the other thing I noticed right away when I got this is that it's quite a bit different in terms of its glaze than basically all the other ones that I have. So if we compare this with the Jedi Luke one, this is nice and shiny glaze. This is more of a matte finish, which, I mean, I guess is an intentional choice on their part. Maybe they're trying to replicate the carbonite look, and maybe, you know, it might have looked a little weird to have it be too shiny. I don't know. But it does seem a little bit not in keeping with the whole look that we've had on this line. If we look on the sides, there's a little bit of detail there. Not a huge amount of stuff, but still definitely nice to have in the background there of a Jabba display. And finally, we have a couple of characters I picked up that are not exactly Jabba specific, but they can definitely work in a Jabba's Palace display. We have a Jawa, and I like the way that they've used more than one color here on the face, which is kind of unusual for these pieces, but definitely works well with the Jawa's hood there. And then we have C-3PO, who's black inside, and yeah, he definitely will fit in right next to Jabba there. So I guess the only thing left to do now is just to get them all in one shot here and see if we can make a decent looking display out of them. And here we have them all together, and I'll have to say they look pretty good. I've just put a little sheet of the styrofoam from one of the boxes in the background to kind of raise the ones in the back up. I'm realizing now that I have all these together that I definitely am missing a few that I could add, such as Boba Fett, which I don't have, or maybe even Chewbacca to stand next to Leia there. Let me know if you have any other suggestions for ones that can fit into a Jabba's Palace display. At the moment, I don't actually have these on display except sort of in my basement, but I would like to set up something decent looking in the future. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this look at my new Geeky Tikis, and thanks very much for watching.